I understand you met Dana White when you were 12 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And
we were young.
did you guys immediately get along?
We did. We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got along because we both always got in trouble in school.
Yeah.
And so we both always got in trouble in school, and it was like, oh, this is birds of a feather, right? Thank you. Awesome.
Very cool. But it must feel good to have a friend you've known since childhood, right? That must be a good feeling.
It's great because, and I'm sure he feels the same way, but there's nothing we can't talk about. You know what I mean? And all of the media hoopla, it's like it's almost not real. You know what I mean? It's like you do that, and then, or that you go to the fights, but then at the end of the day, or as soon as that's over, then you're just friends again.
Yeah.
And I can say to him whatever I want to say to him, whether he wants to hear it or not, and vice versa. So,
did you have any idea that he would one day become the success that he is? Did you sense that he would go really far in some sort of way?
No. So I liken it to, if you were friends with Bill Gates, would you think that, wow, this guy is going to become, the tech titan who's going to absolutely revolutionize the world, or Steve Jobs? You might say, yeah, there was an inkling that he was driven, but the reality is there's no way, I don't believe there's any way that someone could, prophesy something like that. So no, I had no idea that that's what he was going to do. That's what's so amazing about it.
Right.
Is to watch it and to sit back. Even now I'll sit back and I'll watch him at a press conference and I'll just be like, wow, to have that reflection, between then and now.
And he's become really popular. Are you surprised at how popular you've become through the video blogs, through his video blogs? You've just become sort of like an MMA celebrity. Are you surprised at how that's happened?
Yeah, I don't. It really is a testament to. I talked about this a little bit in an interview where I think that what's interesting is that MMA is the fastest growing sport in the world, but it's only taken off since like 2005, 2006. And what I find interesting about it is that I think that it is dependent on the growth of new media. So you have two things that have really that really are driving MMA and are driving MMA, and that's the internet and reality TV. And those are new, somewhat inventions. They didn't have those in 1993. So when the first UFC, or even the later UFCs came about, the only way you could watch them was first on pay-per-view. Then the pay-per-view disappeared. There was no way to watch them. And now you get it everywhere. So you get it with social media, you get it with the reality TV series. And so am I shocked? Yeah, I'm shocked at how people see me and they saw the grappling match and how big it got. Dana called me before he released that first blog that morning, and he's like, dude, be ready for this. And I was like, wow, what do you mean? Like 10,000 people are going to see it? That's what I was thinking. Within 2 days, I was like, dude. I called them back. I'm like, 200,000 people have already seen me get my ass kicked. And so, you know what I mean? It's a shock. It's a total shock. But I think that people gravitated towards it because, as a fan of any sport, I would love to play one-on-one basketball with Michael Jordan. That would be awesome. Right. And so I'm like a proxy for a fan who says, I want to get in there and grapple with the UFC fighter. Well, I did it. And I got my ass kicked.
Do you have a personal favorite video blog moment? There's been a lot of funny ones, a lot of interesting ones. Do you have a personal favorite one?
I'm such a fan, and I always have been, of Joe Lazzone. That's still going to be my favorite one.
Right.
So,
which fighter, personality-wise, reminds you of yourself? You sort of have some sort of similar traits to, do you feel, that you've met through traveling along with the UFC? Yeah,
that's a good question. My approach to life is always just don't take yourself so seriously. And don't take life so seriously. It's not that serious.
Right.
And so I always look for a guy like that. And I think that's probably why I really like Chael Sonnen. because he's just, he's the outside of the camera. He's still a funny, cool guy, And so, I mean, most of the fighters are, some of them are very, very serious.
Right.
Like GSP is a very serious guy. You know what I mean? And but a lot of them have that just like fun, want to have fun personality. And so, but I'd have to say Chael, because I know Chael, and
Right.
just hanging out with him, he's a cool guy.
Now you have an MBA, a law degree. Were you a practicing lawyer, and then did you retire from that?
After I graduated, it's a lot of people that go to law school and pass the bar like I did. They don't necessarily go into practicing law. So I did for a little bit, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do. That's why when I was getting my law degree, I jumped into the MBA program, because I was like, I'm not going to sit in an office and practice law all day. So it's just not my personality. You see me doing that?
That's why I was surprised. Yeah, I didn't expect that. Now, a lot of fans are curious who gave you the tooth nickname and how you lost the tooth.
Dana.
Dana did.
Yeah, Dana gave me the tooth nickname. And I was down, Dana wasn't with me, but I was down in Mexico, and there was a bull, and we're at a bull, what do they call it, where they have the, like a bullfight. And one of the guys was like, do you want to ride this bull? And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to ride this bull. But then someone dared me. I got on it. Okay. I freaking fell against the fence when I got kicked off, and it bruised what happens is it bruises the root, and so then they had to extract the tooth. And so then I had an implant in the tooth, and they had to, but then it kept getting infected over like 6 months. So I kept going, can we put I don't want to walk around with no tooth. I had beautiful teeth before this happened. And so then I couldn't put a tooth in there. And after 6 months, Dana was like, dude, tooth, I'm calling you the tooth. And then the blog came out, and people loved it. They're like, this dude walks around with no tooth,
Now, the book, Into the Cage, a very beautiful book. Congratulations, of course, on that. And what inspired you to put it together?
I've always been a photographer. It was a hobby of mine. I've always been shooting. And so when I was backstage, immediately, Dana and I hooked up. I was living in Florida, and so I haven't had television. I tell this story all the time. People freak out on this. I haven't had television in my house for 20 years. No TV. Oh, okay. Because when my wife and I were raising our daughter, we were like, you know what? No way is this kid going to sit in front of the TV. Because she did it first. Even at 2 years old, she would just sit there. So we're like, enough. Okay. And so when the UFC was really starting to take off in mid-2000, I was in Florida. I was all the way across the world. Dana and I knew what he was doing, but I didn't realize how big it was. And so he would say, come on to a fight, come to this fight. And I just never did. I was just busy. I was busy with work. I was busy raising my daughter. And so when I went back to Vegas, and we moved after Hurricane Katrina, I went to a show, and I was like, holy shit. It was amazing. Have you been to a fight?
Yes.
It's insane, right?
Yeah.
So I'm backstage. First off, I'm seeing all these fans, and I'm backstage, and I'm a photographer, and I had my camera with me, so I just started shooting. And so as I shot, I would go back and I'd look at the photos that I got, and I was just like, this is a book. I mean, no one has seen this. No one has seen behind the scenes like I have the access that I have. Like, there are photographers cage side.
Right. It's
but
different.
It's a totally different access, or perspective.
There are definitely a lot of beautiful behind the scenes shots. Do you have a personal favorite? There's a lot of great ones where you catch some sort of intimate moments. Either
it's not really behind the backstage at a fight, but the one image when I think about the image that I like the most. It was after the book was done. The book was like a 2-year project. And after the book was done, I was in the audience, and Weidman was fighting Silva. And I was like, okay, I don't have really anything. I had like maybe one photo of Weidman. And I was like, but I don't really have Weidman in the book. And the book is coming out in November. Right. So I'm watching the fight, and I love Chris. Chris is my boy. And I love Anderson. And but I'm sitting there watching the fight. And when Chris dropped Anderson, I was like in the audience, and I was like, oh my God. I'm looking around at everybody, and I just go, what I'm thinking is different than what everybody else is thinking. I'm thinking, I don't have Chris in this book. I am fucked. So I immediately got hold of his manager, Randall, and I'm like, dude, I need a photo right now of, because at that point, I was trying to get to, I had spent 2 years backstage shooting fights. And what that entails is when I'm backstage, I'm working. And so I'll be like if I'm with GSP at a fight, I'm shooting him, I'm not watching fights. I'm sitting there backstage with GSP, like before the Condit fight, I was backstage with him for an hour and a half, just shooting photos. And so with him, staying out of the way, cool. But I'm not sitting there watching fights. So I miss whole fights for 2 years. Everyone's like, how was the fight? I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
Because I was shooting, even if I'm cage side shooting, or I'm sitting next to Dana, I'm still not really watching the fight. You know, I'm holding my camera, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm framing my shot, am I getting a good shot? So, long story short, I'm at the Anderson-Weidman fight, and I'm trying to enjoy the fight. I don't want to be backstage. I don't want to shoot any more fights. I want to be a fan again, you know?
And that happens.
Yeah, and that happens, and I just was like, what the fuck? So I didn't have my camera with me. I was like, I'm not bringing my camera. I'm not bringing any gear. I'm just going to be a fan.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, I have to get this photo. So I called his manager. 15 minutes after the fight, I'm upstairs in Weidman's room. He's tucking in his kids to go to bed. He's like, all right, Tooth, let's do this. So we went right outside of the hotel room. So the door's right here. His mom is holding the flag. His other buddy's holding the flag, and I'm shooting the photo. And so that, let me show you the photo. So that photo is one that comes to mind. I mean, there are so many.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? That,
but yeah, the Weidman moment, that's right.
That one right there. You got it?
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. That's him holding the belt after the victory. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you could see his knuckles are swollen. His the flag is the same flag. You know what I mean? He's just outside of. So that moment was like, wow. And that was the moment where I finished the book. You know, where it was like I thought it was done, but then I got those photos, and so, you know.
Right. That was definitely, like, what's the experience backstage? Is it really nerve-wracking when you're around the fighters?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's got to be intense.
Because, you know, you have to respect what they're doing.
Right.
And so I want to be a fly on the wall. And it kind of, after the blog came out when I was I probably only had like a couple months left. And so I was pretty much done or just about done when the blog came out. And then all of a sudden, when that blew up, the fighters knew me and their camp knew me. And so they were like, dude, what's up? Can I get a picture? And so I'm backstage. They want a picture with me, which made me really uncomfortable. I was like, man, now I'm disrupting. Because before then, I was like a fly on the wall. And then after that, yeah. It became kind of a pain in the ass.
Now you've been behind the scenes. Do you have any interesting story, confrontation, argument, or fight taking place backstage? Maybe something interesting that the fans might not have known of?
You know, I've never seen, believe it or not, in all the years I was backstage, I've never seen a confrontation.
Right.
They've never, you know, these guys are athletes, and they're professionals.
Right.
And they have ultimate respect for each other. I mean, despite all the trash talk to hype the fight, which, you know, can be real. I mean, it's a real tactic. I want to get inside your head. I mean, mental game is such a big part of it.
Sure.
And so it's not like that's not real. That is real, and it's very important. But at the same time, these guys are, you know, I mean, aside from what you've seen at some of the weigh-ins, like when Anderson and Chael almost got into it, I mean, you see that, and that is real.
Right.
But as far as backstage, those guys are separated. I mean, they keep those guys a mile apart. It's not like they're in the same dressing room. You know, so typically you'll have, you know, on a fight card, you'll have 2 camps and you'll have like 4 dressing rooms, or even if you had 2 dressing rooms, and they're separated. You know, like a whole team will be here, or if guys know each other. That's what Burt Watson does. So he knows where to put guys. He's been doing it since he's with Ali, you know, back in those days in Frazier. So he knows the game. So I haven't seen anything that's like that. But, you know, you do see guys that get nervous, man. And that's where, you know, like Bert says, and I quote him in the book, you know, the fight is won and lost oftentimes at the weigh-in or backstage.
Really?
Guys just crumble, man. And you can see it. You know, when I'm shooting a guy, you can see how nervous they are.
Who's the most nervous you've seen? Who's the least nervous you've seen?
I'm not gonna say who's the most nervous. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
Who's the least nervous? Who's the most relaxed guy you've seen? Anybody come to mind?
That's a great question. Benson Henderson, man, he is just a cool. He keeps it together. He's a martial artist, and I think that his dedication to doing things like jiu-jitsu tournaments, to what I mean. He is a martial artist. He never gets rattled. The Diaz brothers are cool, man. They're just intense. I wouldn't say like they're relaxed. They're just intense. They have this intensity about them.
Right.
The Diaz brothers are here with their intensity. Benson Henderson is just like really, really relaxed. GSP is, you could see him just keeping it together, where, another martial artist. But I think Benson Henderson is just the guy who's just like very zen.
Very cool. So, Into the Cage, people can get this book. It'd be a great Christmas gift for a UFC fan.
And that's what we were thinking is, we come out with this book. It's $20-something. Perfect gift. I hate buying Christmas gifts. And that was the point, was like, how can I buy an inexpensive Christmas gift that someone will love forever?
Right.
Yeah,
this would be a great one.
I have my own personal copy, and I just had Vanderlei sign it, and I was so freaking pumped. He signed it like 4 days ago, wrote all over his pictures. So yeah.
Awesome.
My goal is to get every picture signed. So
that would be that is a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, homie.
Thanks.